Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Daniel. I'm the tutor here at the Digital Marketing Institute. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that by now, but if this is anyone's first webinar, I'd like to just welcome you to it. And we're going to run through today assignment 2 and part 2 of that assignment. So we're going to actually focus on the channel section, the action plan, the budget, measurement, then we're going to go into references, and then we'll have a recap of the kind of structure and layout of the assignment so you can achieve the best grade as well. So guys, as usual, I would just like to ask if somebody could please say that they can see and hear me okay in the questions tab so I can confirm that I'm coming through all right, and then we'll move on with today's webinar. Okay, can't hear you. Loud and clear. Okay, Isabel is actually saying she can't hear me, but I have two other people saying that I'm coming through okay. So I'm going to assume that it's working now, guys. This webinar will be recorded, of course, so if you miss anything or it skips out a little bit, don't worry, I will put the recording up on the webinar schedule a little bit later on, possibly today or tomorrow morning if I get a chance. Okay, guys, so today I'm going to go through, as I said, assignment 2 and part 2 of that assignment. It's the final stage of your second assignment, so it's a very important webinar, and hopefully we can really kind of dive into some of the areas and get you the best grades as well. Remember, guys, we're going to have a Q&A at the end as well, so if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please do ask them, and we'll have that Q&A at the end. Okay, and to ask questions, if anyone's unfamiliar, please just use the questions tab as you can see here in front of you and just write in the question and I'll get to it at the end. Okay. So quick recap on assignment 2, guys. It's the strategy assignment. The first assignment was a research assignment. This is a strategy assignment. And it's a 5,000 word document, same thing. I'm sure you are probably halfway through at this stage, if not a little bit more, and you've probably covered, the executive summary and all the way up to the objective section. But when we're looking at the channels and all the way through then to our references, it's a contained 5,000 word document. And we do have that leeway of an extra 500 words as well to give you a bit of flexibility there. But my advice is always to try and hit 5,000 words. If you're over, then you might kind of readjust it and see what you might need to bring down, or maybe you need to include some more elements in another section. So 5,000 words, that's kind of the takeaway from this, and it's a strategy assignment as well, guys. Okay. So let's just get straight into it, I think, here, because this is obviously part 2 of the assignment 2 webinar. So the channel section. Now, the channel section is a very substantial part of this actual assignment, okay? So there's 30% going for this section, and it's approximately 1,575 words, right? So you want to select 4 to 5 channels for this section, and you're going to have to justify why you've chosen them, okay? These channels are going to be used for your company to achieve its objectives, and you want to create a robust plan of these channels, and not just focus on 1 or 2, okay? So if you're picking 4 to 5 channels, you want to showcase what channels you picked. You want to justify why you selected them. You also want to include screenshots as well, okay, to showcase how you're going to actually use those channels. So I just want to kind of run through 2 channels and give you guys an example of how you might accomplish that. The first one I would say is if we're using Google Search and Display, and we're using a paid advertisement on Google, and we say that's going to be one of our channels. We need to justify why that is. So we look at our primary research that we've done. We look at some secondary sources that we've looked at as well. Now you can bring in your primary research, obviously from assignment 1 here, and you can justify why you've selected that channel. Okay. Then when we say how are we going to showcase how that channel is operational, we want to provide screenshots. So as an example, if we're using paid search, we're going to maybe include screenshots of the keywords that we're going to be using. Then we're going to showcase a screenshot of the advertisement itself with the links to the website. Okay, and then we're going to actually showcase the budget that's going to go behind that paid search ad as well. So it's just 3 screenshots there. Okay, so we've got our keywords. We've then got our actual ad displayed in itself, and then we've also got the costings of and the distribution, so the regions that the ad is going to go out to as well, and the cost of the ad. Okay, so that's just an example of 3 screenshots, but it would effectively showcase how this ad is going to be created with keywords, then the display of what the ad will look like, including the website and the link and the subtext, etc., and then all the way through to the actual the ad in terms of its distribution and its pricing as well. Okay, secondary, we could look at an email marketing channel. And there's 2 platforms that I'm mostly familiar with, and depending on your background, you might even be familiar with email marketing. But There's two I'll give you an example of, and one is actually MailChimp, which is quite a one that a lot of people are familiar with. It's a user-friendly tool, and it's one that's used in a lot of industry. MailChimp, if we were taking that as an example, we would say to ourselves, okay, now we want to create our email list. So firstly, we want to justify why we selected that email marketing channel. That's regarding our budget, regarding our marketing resources, and then regarding the industry itself and our target audience. So when we move into then actually showcasing the email marketing channel that we've selected, we would say, okay, let's actually start with creating the email lists of how it's going to go out and the workflow of how it's going to go out. So maybe you've got a smart email. Maybe your email will go out to at the awareness stage of a buyer's journey, possibly how they interacted on your website. Or maybe then you've got an email that's going to go out if someone hasn't completed a purchase on the website. Or alternatively, you could just have an email that might be providing a newsletter on a monthly basis. So these are all screenshots that you'd want to take to showcase the workflow of how the email is going to be distributed to your target recipient list on your emails. And then also you want to showcase the actual construction of the email itself. So you want to have a visual display of, if we were taking a newsletter, you want to showcase an example newsletter of what to expect potentially. Or you could also have an example screenshot of you haven't finished your purchase or something along those lines if someone is making their way through the purchase process on your website, and this is a way of potentially retargeting them and getting them back onto your website. So that's just two examples. Again, if we were to take one more, we could look at content marketing, and we could look at the content marketing, again, how it's created. And when I say content marketing, it could be a PDF, for example, and how that's going to be distributed on websites as well, okay? And also possibly distributed on Facebook, on LinkedIn. So when I say channels, it's a very in-depth area of this paper. You want to select 4 to 5 of them, and you want to really hammer in on that justification of why you're selecting these channels based on your research and your budget and resource constraints of the company that you've selected. Okay, how it's going to achieve the objectives. So we've got objectives in our last section, and these channels are going to be really the channels or the methods or the streams that are going to allow us to effectively achieve our objectives. Okay, so I've given 2 examples there, and I hope that's put a bit of clarity on. We can touch on that again in the Q&A if we need to. But let's just move down a little bit here on my list that I've made up. And as I've said, you need to focus a robust plan on several channels. And you can use an IMC approach, okay? And an IMC approach is an integrated marketing communication approach, okay? Which means that these channels have to be specifically digital, okay? Because a digital marketing strategy assignment. If your company has traditional methods already in place, traditional methods such as possibly radio advertising, possibly they might be attending events, conferences, trade shows, all IMC, all traditional elements, you can incorporate them into your digital channels. So I give the example a lot of the time, if someone is showcasing at an event or a trade show as a company service or a product, you might want to actually amplify that on one of your digital channels. It might want to go out in your newsletter, on your email marketing campaign. It might want to just be showcased as content on your digital channels. So it's a way of amplifying the traditional channels and using them, effectively using your traditional channels as content for your digital ones. But just to kind of sum this up, the channels that you select here have to be the digital channels. You can bring in the traditional ones on an IMC approach, but what we're looking for is justification and showcasing how you're going to use the digital channels, okay? Remember to ensure that your budget and channels align, as I said there, on the marketing resources of your company. And then you want to showcase as well how you're going to communicate with the target audiences. So as an example that I ran through at the beginning there, when I said Google search and display and using paid search on Google, you can hammer down on the demographics, you can hammer down on the locations, even on, if we're taking LinkedIn as an example, you can hammer down on the actual job titles or companies effectively of your target audiences. Okay, so you want to showcase who you're reaching, when you're reaching them, and then justify why you're reaching them as well. Okay, providing those example screenshots. Then in this section, you want to also include a race model at the end. You can include any relevant planning framework, but we do recommend the race model. The race model is available. We have an example available in the assignment handbook. So my advice is when you're running through your assignment, always just keep, I remember doing this assignment and to my left was always the assignment handbook. It's just a great checklist because sometimes you can slightly run off in a tangent. So I would recommend using the race model for this section. And the race model is a way of aligning your objectives, your channels, and your key performance indicators in a quite a concise but effective framework. So I get a few questions on this and I'd like to recap on it, is that the race model, obviously reach, act, convert and engage. You don't need to include every element of that if it's not applicable to your objectives. So I may have a company that's purely based on awareness. Say it's a charity and there's no revenue streams involved. I know it's a strange example, but I just want to kind of run with this a little bit. What that means is I might have convert in that framework because I'm just literally there to promote brand awareness and engagement and reach. Okay, so I would actually omit maybe the convert stage of that race model if I was using that as an example. But I find a lot of the time you will be able to actually allocate objectives to each of the or A, C, and E. But the race framework, as I said, it is actually available in our assignment handbook. I have the assignment handbook actually beside me. I always use it myself, and it's a great benchmark tool. That one I would suggest don't stray too far from the one that we've given an example of. So you want to just allocate the objectives to the channels that you've identified, and then put those key performance indicators in as well, how you're going to achieve those objectives with your channels. All right. So we'll move on now to the action plan section of the assignment. Okay. Now the action plan section is 10% is going for the action plan. This section you're going to need to include a Gantt chart and an editorial calendar. Okay, and you can include a more detailed version in the main body if needed. And I'm going to showcase an example of the Gantt chart in a moment. So we'll touch on that in a minute. You want to show key milestones in the campaign of your Gantt chart, and you want to showcase who does what, who it's assigned to, certain elements, certain tasks, and when the accomplishments are going to be there. And that's all specific to the channels and the objectives that you've set up. You want to also showcase the resources required, okay, such as financial, training, staffing, that kind of aspect. So potentially if you have a channel, let's just run with this a little bit. If you have a channel of, let me just pick one that's not email marketing. Let me pick affiliate marketing. Let's go with affiliate marketing as a channel, which is effectively using another website to promote your own product or service. So if it's an IT product, it could be techradar.com. It's an affiliate marketing website. But we mightn't have any experience in that. We might need to upskill our existing staff. Their costs, they're going to take time as well. So you want to allocate those cost resources and the time on your Gantt chart as well, okay? And showcase it monthly. You can showcase it weekly if you want, but due to the constrictions of the word count, I would actually advise to showcase this monthly. And that's all relative to the Gantt chart. If we're talking about an editorial calendar that is also mandatory for this assignment, the editorial calendar is going to showcase the content type. So this is a way of literally is a calendar that's going to showcase all the content items that are going to be distributed via your digital marketing channels. And you want to have, for starters, when that content is going to be created. So you want to put on your calendar when this content is going to be created, who is going to create it. Then you're going to actually want to have on your content calendar as well, same content item, but when it's going to be distributed, so on a separate date. And you're going to have who's responsible for potentially uploading it to social media channels, for distributing it out on email marketing channels, for distributing out just maybe on the website. So you want to showcase who's responsible, when it's going to be created, when it's going to be distributed, and of course not forgetting the format of the content item itself. So it could be a PDF, it could be a webinar, it could be a news article, it could be a survey, it could be as simple as that. But all these different ways of, and again, finally, showcasing where it's going to go. So when I say where it's going to go, let's assume we're going to put out a webinar on our email marketing, a webinar invitation on our email marketing channels, but we want to showcase who it's actually going to. So what's our target audience for that? Is it an awareness campaign, and who are we targeting? Or is it maybe a retention campaign or a retargeting campaign of an existing customer base? So I'm just going to sum up the kind of key points on that when you're developing your editorial calendar. You want to have your content type, when it's going to be created and who is going to create it. Then you're going to have the same content item, when it's going to be distributed, what format is it in. You're also going to have who is going to distribute it, and then who is the target audience that it's going to go out to as well. So just a couple of areas there. And if you find other elements from academic journals, from textbooks, from content on our courses that you feel is relevant of inclusion, and that's why, you know, justify it, cite why you've included it in your editorial calendar, that method, and that's absolutely fine. Okay, so I'm just going to showcase now an example of a Gantt chart that I've got here. So I've created this Gantt chart just to put a bit of clarity on it, because I know it's and one piece of advice I would give you guys on this is when you're doing the research assignment, obviously when you're going through course content and you're also doing some additional research and consequently doing your primary research for assignment 1, it's a lot of work. But when you're doing assignment 2, to actually create your diagrams, such as the Gantt chart, such as the editorial calendar, such as the the management dashboard that we're going to discuss a little bit later as well, and then you've got your budget table. There's a lot of intense work that comes into play in developing these diagrams and frameworks as well. So my advice is to really don't leave this assignment, you know, till the last minute and say, I need to develop my charts, and because you need to develop these and then you're going to justify them as well with written text in your assignment. So just want to kind of get across, it's a heavy workload, and my advice is just don't leave it till the last minute, because you know you've got it can take a long time to compile some of these frameworks. But let's just run through this here. Okay, so I've actually selected I think I've got 5 here. I've got 5 channels that I've selected for this Gantt chart example. So I've got website optimization, so website as the channel. I've got social media as the channel. I've got email marketing. I've got content marketing, and then I've got Google search and display. And some of the fundamentals that you'll see here, and I've actually compiled this in reference to the course content, also in reference to the assignment handbook, and then I've also done a bit of secondary research in regards to a textbook, an academic textbook from Larson, which is called Project Management. So I've compiled all 3 of the elements there to come up with this. But as you can see, we've got over on our left here the 4 channels, and they're kind of easily identifiable from the color coding. And then we've got a rundown of the tasks that are going to be needed to effectively get our objectives completed. So as you can see, and I'll run through the social media channel, and we can see there that we've just got our Facebook post updates, we've got our YouTube video updates, we've also got our paid ads on those channels as well showcased. We've also got, then if we run down to the content marketing, there's a lot of blogs that were needed to be created for this particular company. So we've actually got the creation of all those blogs you can see, and also the creation of the newsletters. And then I've just cut this Gantt chart off, but as you can see, that's the United Kingdom in terms of the Google search and display, and all the other relevant countries would be displayed under that as well. And I know I was going to say in the EU, and obviously the UK is not going to be there for long. But if specifically this Gantt chart was actually allocated to countries in the European Union, so there was 28 of those under that. What I just want to showcase here though is how to showcase the task. So the task ID is what you're seeing there on the left, specific to each channel. And then you'll see if we move over one, we have assigned to. So now we actually know who's going to be responsible for this project and the tasks in this project specifically. So we have our marketing manager, then we have obviously the e-commerce setup on the website optimization, which is finance and procurement manager. So we know what the task is, what channel it's going to be related to, who's assigned to it, and then we have obviously the progress, which is currently they're all at 0% because it hasn't been initiated yet. But if one of these tasks was actually currently being implemented, the progress will be going up obviously in a percentage style basis. Then we have the start date and the end date of our tasks as well. And then if we just move all the way over to the end, we have, again, and I said on a monthly basis. So you can see you can kind of compile this monthly and showcase kind of in a neat fashion. And you can see here, obviously, these are just progression bars of how long or when these things these tasks are actually going to be implemented. So if we take email marketing and we just look at the setting up of the abandoned cart and the payment complete emails, so they will be emails that you'd get if you had either completed a transaction or potentially you hadn't. We might wait 30 minutes, you know how this works, and then we send you out your cart is currently full or whatever else. And you can see here, if I was to look at this and say, okay, this is going to be done by the marketing manager, both those content items for your email marketing, and they are going to be created in the month of May, and we actually have the exact start date and the end dates then as well. We can see if we look at the YouTube ads, or let's actually look at our Facebook post updates. They're ongoing from June. So just to give you a bit of clarity on the Gantt chart there, guys. And I hope that kind of provides a bit of detail. All right, so I'm going to now move on to the budgeting section of the assignment. And the budgeting section is one area where students sometimes can have a few issues with obtaining budgets from their companies. So before we kind of get into the section, I kind of just want to run across that the budget is obviously going to define everything that you do in terms of the objectives and the channels that you pick. And at this point, you should obviously have been given an approximate budget of your company, and that needs to be included in an additional supplementary company information file that was probably in assignment 1. And when you're in section 2 of this assignment, the organizational background, you can give a bit more details as well into your company, but we'll just stick on budget here. What I want to get across is that you should have your estimated budgets in place by now. One thing though that you may not have considered is staff costs. And staff costs, a lot of the time, companies can actually be quite hesitant to give. So what you can do in this respect is you can actually look on job websites, or you can find relative industry trend reports that are showcasing the pay salary or the pay scale of those particular occupations. And just include those from secondary research and cite where you obtained that data. So if you obtained it from job websites, or you obtained it from industry trend websites of those specific job occupations, that's absolutely fine. But just be sure to reference where you're pulling that information from. And that's fine. If you have the staff cost, perhaps it's your company, perhaps you're working in that company, or just the company is happy to give you that kind of detail, that's absolutely amazing. And please use and include that information. So just to kind of hone in on that there, guys, if you don't have the staff costs, it's not a major concern. Just ensure to include where you cite the information where you're obtaining that from, and the estimated budgets you should have by now for your companies as well. So what you want to do is in this section is that you want to show detailed internal and external costings, and not just on a top level overview. You want to really kind of drill down on the monthly breakdown of the channel. It can be weekly or it can be monthly, as I said. So we do have a budget table as an example in the handbook as well, and we're going to run through that a little bit more, but I'm just going to run down these bullet points firstly. So you want to reference costs by agencies or contractors. And what does that mean? That means that you may need to, one, upskill workers, as we said earlier, and that's going to cost. Or if we have a company, but we're not so proficient in maybe content creation, we might want to outsource our video content to an external company or an external agency, and that costs money, and that's where we need to include. So just because your company doesn't have the resources to use a channel maybe like YouTube effectively, maybe you want to really upscale your video content because that's what the target audience wants. I mean, this now you're justifying it. But you don't have the capabilities to do it, but you have the budget to do it. Then you want to showcase that it's going to be outsourced to a particular company and showcase the costings of that company as well. Okay, so, and then not forgetting, as I said there, the staff costs as well, and showcase the internal staff costs. You want to state and justify your budget allocation across all your channels. And I gave that example there of if we were outsourcing our video content, but if we were allocating budget to an affiliate marketing website, we need to justify that because the research showcases this is where we need to put our money. Okay, we also need to justify that if we were using the likes of Google search and display. You know, you want to really pull in information that says this is where the target audience is. Maybe this is where our competitors are operating in and they're pulling in a lot of revenue, and just showcase that with additional research, okay, to validate why you're using those channels. In terms of stating how you have calculated the figures and why you're spending more or less in different areas, you want to state that as well. So you might want to have a LinkedIn paid search advertising going on, and you might want to place a lot of budget behind that. And that might be because your company is actually a business-to-business company, and that's where a lot of your target audience is as well. Okay, so, and how do you actually come up with the figures for those channels? If we were looking at, for example, if we actually just take it back to email marketing, I could be wrong on the figure, but I believe at the moment MailChimp is free. There is a free plan. Obviously, you can pay for MailChimp, but there's a free version of MailChimp as well available. And I believe that allows multiple emails on a monthly basis for free and up to about 1,000 respondents. So that's actually a free channel that can be used, okay, which is a really, really handy tool, particularly if your budget's quite low. On the other side of that, if you have a budget that you want to place a lot of revenue, or sorry, a budget that you want to place a lot of it on social media channels, and as I said there, LinkedIn, you want to showcase what that's going to cost. And how you can do that is that you can actually set up those ads on LinkedIn if you have access to those channels from your company, and don't actually initiate them, but you can conceptually put channels or ads on the likes of Facebook and LinkedIn together without actually activating the ad, and it will showcase you how long it's going to run for and the budget as well of how much it's going to cost to actually distribute that particular ad. So that's a way of kind of calculating those figures, research and calculating them actually in a user display of showcasing the ad as well. All right, and then showcase the return on investment. So return on investment can be awareness. It doesn't have to just be monetary figures, but it can be the likes of awareness or engagement as well. So if you've got a company that isn't just looking for revenue streams, you can actually showcase an investment of maybe creating content and then having the likes of shares, maybe likes on social media channels as your return on investment. But I just want to kind of run through the budget table a little bit now. So if this is in the assignment handbook, so I'm actually kind of running through the assignment handbook here. When you're doing your budget table, you'll see in the handbook version that we've given you, we've actually got the channels laid out specifically on the left-hand side. So we've got website, we've got social media, we've got, as an example, mobile and paid media there. I would actually recommend that you put the return on investment at the end of each of your channels. Okay, so if you have a awareness channel that's strictly not in terms of monetary value, you can then put the return on investment in terms of engagement or likes or shares, for example. But if you've got one that's monetary in terms of maybe just selling a product or a service, then you can actually put the return on investment right under that specific channel. So it's kind of a good way of gauging the channels and having the return on investment at the bottom. Then you can actually have a total ROI in terms of the revenue stream at the bottom of your budget table as well. Okay, so you want to have that done out on a monthly basis as well. You can do it weekly. I would actually recommend doing it monthly. And you're going to have the costs relative to how those channels are going to be set up. So as an example, given in the guidelines, we have there the website audit, SEO improvements, or domain hosting, and you can see the relative costs that are going to go along with that as well. Okay, and then the return on investment, as I said at the bottom, is obviously calculated from the monetary objectives that you're expecting based on your research. And also it can be an awareness or ROI as well, or an engagement ROI. Just be sure to state that in your budgeting table as well, what's going on there. Okay. One other tip I will just say on the budget table, guys, and this is just from my days in university, is that I remember my economics and accounting lecturer always said to me, if in doubt, put it in administration. So if there's an area that you're slightly concerned about in terms of, you'll see we have other there, and it's administrative costs on the budget table. If there's something that's a cost, you can put it just under maybe administration and just have what it is exactly, but you can put it in administrative costs if something is that you're slightly confused on. Maybe it's in terms of it could be some kind of license agreement or something along those lines. As it's not specific to a channel, you might want to put that in administrative. And you'll see there we also have agency fees. But if you have content marketing as a strategy setup or as a channel setup, you can actually put down the agency fees directly under content as well if you wish to do so, or you can put it under other. Just be sure to showcase how you keep it consistent and reference how you're actually creating your budget table if you're using any supplementary materials such as academic textbooks or even content on our course material as well. Okay, so we're going to move on now to the measurement dashboard. And the measurement dashboard is it's quite an interesting area of this assignment as well. It's mandatory, so I just want to say, guys, as we move through all the kind of frameworks that we've discussed so far in terms of the Gantt chart, the editorial calendar, the budget table, they're all mandatory, so they all need to go in the main body of your work. All right. You can have additional versions in your appendices if you really want to kind of showcase a lot more detail. You can do as well, But the example, which I'm just going to scroll back to of the Gantt chart there, this could be included in the main body of work. And as you can see, with the just at the bottom there, Google search and display, I may have about 5 or 6 more tasks, but in my overall appendices version, I may have vast array of all the different targeted ads that are going to go out. But for the main body, obviously, that's going to really hammer on your word count. So you might just want to have the kind of core mandatory tasks that are going to be needed to showcase how the channel is going to operate and also how the channel is going to be designed effectively. Okay, so I'm just going to move on then to the measurement dashboard, guys. And the measurement dashboard is a way of you showcasing the most effective key performance indicators for your channels that you've picked. Okay, so you want to look back at your objectives and you want to actually show how you're going to measure them and progress, and then benchmark them specific to each channel. So if we take a measurement dashboard, and we actually have a content measurement dashboard example on our membership platform, which I highly recommend looking at there, guys, as well. So it's specific to content marketing, but it might give you an insight to how to approach this. What you want to do here is that you want to measure each of the channels, okay, in terms of the return on investment and the cost of conversion or the leads. So let's run with a few examples. If we take the actual channels that we had in our Gantt chart there, and we'll keep using them. If we take the likes of our Google search and display, we might want to have our impressions. We might want to have our impressions, and we also might want to have our click-through rate as well. So we've got our KPIs set up. So we've got our Google search and display. We've selected our 2 KPIs, and then we want to actually have the expected amount, as we can see, because this is our objective. So we have an approximate figure that we're trying to actually get to here. We want to also showcase that as well. So we want to have our goal figure, if you want to call it that, of what we need to get to, or an objective figure. And then we'll have our impressions and our KPIs could be used as an example. Sorry, our impressions and our CTRs, our click-through rate. If we were taking email marketing as a channel to include on our measurement dashboard, we could have our open rates, our bounce rates, our unsubscribe rates, our click-through rates. Maybe there's a link involved in the actual message. Okay, and then we've got different key performance indicators for different channels that we've picked. You want to demonstrate how the measurements of these channels are done. Okay, so you want to showcase in an image in your appendices or in the main body of your work. If we're taking LinkedIn as an example, you want to showcase how you're actually pulling the key performance indicators from that platform. So a screenshot's fine. Same would go for Facebook. The same would go for the likes of MailChimp or Marketo is another email marketing tool people use. But you want to showcase how you're actually taking the information of open rates, bounce rates, unsubscribe rates specific to email. If we were looking at social media channels, you want to showcase the engagement levels of maybe paid advertising, or maybe just regular content that's being uploaded on your social media channels. So you want to showcase the analytics and how you're gauging that. And then you want to compile that all into a measurement dashboard. Measurement dashboard is going to showcase those KPIs with your channels, and then you're going to have corresponding graphs as well to showcase the engagement and how you're reaching those objectives as well. So we'll just stick with that email marketing one, and we have the open rates, the bounce rates, the unsubscribe rates, and the click-through rates as well. And then we've got a graph that corresponds to showcase how that's actually happening. Okay, and you want to fill that measurement dashboard with your objectives that you've set out. All right. So you want to demonstrate the measurement of those channels, as I said, listed in the channel section. You want to make sure that you stay within budget, but still reach those targets as well. So this is, again, a way of, you can kind of see that there's a bit of synergy between all the sections now. So we've got our budgeting was the last section, and then we had our channels as the last section, and now we're going to measure the channels and stay in line with our budgets. All right, so there is a bit of synergy between each section. And you're going to want to compile, obviously, this in relation to your budget. Detailed measurements of each channel, as I said, so that's taking the analytics from, be it social media channels, it could be Google Analytics for your website optimization, and picking those key performance indicators respective of what you want to showcase on your measurement dashboard. And then again, that overall viewpoint of including graphs to showcase how they're performing. So there is a lot of, if you guys write in a measurement dashboard or sorry, management dashboard on even Google, there's a lot of showcase, a lot of frameworks that showcase it, and a lot of actual, you can even get some demo accounts that will showcase it as well. But you'll see a lot of corresponding ones specifically for digital marketing, where it's just picking those channels, it's showcasing the key performance indicators, and then it's showcasing corresponding. It could be pie charts, it could be bar charts, but it gives a representation of what's going on with those key performance indicators. So to sum up kind of what a management dashboard is that it's a way of a manager looking at the current status or current status, I suppose is the word, of those channels on a weekly or monthly basis. So I could pick up a management dashboard and just get into it straight away, and I could see, obviously we've got our relative KPIs, so they're all set up correctly, and I can actually just see in a one page dashboard, this is how email marketing is performing, this is how our social media channels are performing, this is how our Google search is performing, this is how our website is performing as well. And it's just a very easy way of showcasing that with graphs and, again, the relevant KPIs. But link it to your objectives, so fill it with what's expected from your objectives and keep it within those budgetary constraints as well. All right, so we've covered, guys, pretty much all the remaining sections, and now it's just time to get into the references as well. So referencing doesn't change so much as how it did in the first assignment. Your referencing is going to follow the Harvard method, all right? And again, it's about making sure that every citation that you put in your main body of work has a full reference in the reference list at the bottom of your page. You also want to include possibly additional screenshots. You might even want to include additional versions of those charts that we discussed, such as your Gantt chart or your editorial calendar. If you have more in-depth versions of those and you want to include them in your appendices, that's fine, but just ensure to label your appendices accordingly. So I could have appendices A, Gantt chart, and then I could have, I would label that, obviously appendices A, Fig 1 Gantt chart, for example, and then I could, maybe if I was talking about that specific Gantt chart in my assignment main body, something that's maybe only available in that version, I could say information obtained or information showcased in the Gantt chart, and then I would have, obviously, in my brackets, Gantt chart, appendices A, Fig 1 Gantt chart. So I can straight away see what you're talking about and how you can pull that information from the appendices. The same goes if you're just talking about possibly academic journals, possibly industry trend reports, possibly content on our membership platform. You want to just talk about the contents, obviously, and discuss the contents of it, and then verify it with the citation. So I could have, let's take Michael Porter as an example. He's a well-known figure in academia of digital marketing. If I was verifying something Michael Porter said, or it amplifies something that I've researched from another author, perhaps, I would have, information can be seen in this complementary version of this chart as seen in, and then I can have brackets Porter 2016 or 2017 or whatever else. We do have Harvard referencing guidelines available in our learning platform, so there is a lot of details there. There is one or two areas, though, that students seem to have slight questions about a lot of the time, and it's if they're actually referencing content on our course, how do they do it? In that respect, what you want to do is, let's take Clark Boyd as an example. You want to have, so if you're actually, let's take Matt Mooney as an example, because Matt Mooney actually goes into details about the management dashboard. So if you guys want to have a bit more information potentially from our course, Matt Mooney actually discusses the management dashboard, and that's in the social media marketing stream, I believe, and it's in strategy, so it's module, the last module in social media marketing. But if I wanted to cite that, what I would say is, obviously, information has been compiled, etc. And then I would have Matt Mooney, or just Mooney, Mooney 2019, because that's the course content. And then I would actually have in my reference list, I would have the title of the content, and in this respect, it's course content. So I would actually have social media, module 10, strategy. Then I would have social media as the module, and then I would have accessed, how to access it, but I would actually include the transcripts. So you can download the transcripts on your online platform. on our online learning material, I would actually use the transcript as how to reference any course material. Okay, so that way I can actually pull the exact page that I'm referencing the content from as well. So I could have Matt Mooney 2019 in my main body of work, and then I'll go down and I'll have the author again, which is Matt Mooney. I will have the title document, which would be in this respect, as I said, module 10 strategy, and it would be in the corresponding stream of social media marketing. Sorry, I'm just trying to, I have a lot of I have a lot of the different lectures in my head. I'm just trying to make sure I got the correct one. And then I would also have how to access it as well, last accessed 2019, and provide the link and also the page number of the transcript if applicable as well. So that covers how to reference class material if needed. If you're just referencing screenshots, which is an interesting one. If you're referencing the likes of Google Analytics or the likes of your social media posts and stuff like that, that's in your appendices, it was, as I said before, you just want to label all those images appropriately. So I would suggest that you actually, in your appendices, have appendices A, appendices B, appendices C. And so you'd have appendices A, and that might just be your social media images or your content images, and then appendices B might be your email marketing images. And that way you can have appendices B, Fig 2, and showcase what you're talking about in your main body of work. And you just scroll down to your appendices and I can see straight away, okay, that's what they're talking about. That's why they've highlighted all their supplementary screenshot information in appendices B or appendices C. Okay, one final note, primary research that was conducted in assignment 1. All that primary research, and when I say that, that's obviously your surveys or your focus groups or your industry interviews. All that material needs to go in the appendices of this assignment as well. All right, so that's really important because you're obviously using research in this assignment for your target personas, because you have to do the target personas in both. So that research is always formulated from primary and secondary, and in that respect you need to ensure that all the information that was obtained, so let's assume it's a survey, all the survey questions and all the survey responses need to go in your appendices of assignment 2 as well, guys. Okay, it's very important to note that. The other additional element I would say is if you are putting other Gantt charts or editorial calendars, more in-depth versions in your appendices version, be sure to state that in that section of the assignment. So you can say in-depth versions or information on existing Google Analytics is available in additional Gantt chart and editorial calendar provided in the appendices, okay, with more in-depth analysis, something along those lines, so that we know there's a more detailed version available. Okay, so that kind of covers referencing, and I'm happy to answer referencing questions, guys. If you have any and you want to post them on the forum, it's actually a good place to post them if you've referencing queries, because sometimes then I'll answer it, and I can I know it's kind of hard to give a referencing kind of guideline sometimes in a webinar. Maybe it's better if I just give it in a concise example form. So if you have any questions on referencing, please, first port of call is use our referencing handbook. But if you're still struggling, maybe write it on the form and I'll get back to you as soon as possible, and I'll give an example that might help you as well. Okay, guys, so just kind of probably a good way to segue in here. Before we kind of get to talking about just how to contact us if you have any more info, as this is assignment 2, part 2, my advice is just use the handbook as much as you can, okay, when you're going through everything, and just check that everything's okay. Get somebody to proofread it. Make sure that you're putting in the content that's needed. Keep your writing professional as you did in assignment 1. Keep it professional and avoid kind of an informal approach of, I done my research by containing this. Don't have it research conducted has stated that, and then, keep it professional, keep the diction professional, keep the terminology professional. It's actually going to improve on your word count as well, and ensure that your referencing is there as well to amplify your whole assignment, because as referencing equates for about 5% of the assignment, the value of referencing good academia, the value of referencing content from industry trend reports, it really does boost your actual content in your assignment, and subsequently then boosts those sections. So referencing is very important. The method of referencing is very important, but the actual content is going to be amplified so much with correct referencing as well. So it is very important to get it done correctly and to make sure that you're referencing accurate, verifiable, and reputable content, whether that's academic journals, whether that's verifiable news websites like Sky News, or BBC News in their technology sections. Maybe they've got an in-depth analysis of a channel that you want to investigate. or then you want to just do academic journals or even academic textbooks that you want to reference, or our membership platform. Or even content that you might find on a thought leader's blog who's a verifiable one. Like, for example, Neil Patel is actually on our Global Industry Advisory Council. Neil Patel has some great content online, and it's all, you know, very accurate and verifiable. He's a real thought leader in the industry. Okay, so I just want to kind of overlap that referencing there, and just on a checklist of, remember guys, to have your assignments professionally looked at by someone else, to just make sure that everything is in the right place. You might have missed a couple of spelling mistakes there. Second, I would say ensure that your referencing and your appendices is all created. You have 4 submission slots available to you, and that's going to include your assignment and then a PDF version of your assignment as well. So you got 2 additional folders if you want to put some supplementary material to showcase. That might be some additional screenshots, that might be an Excel file, which I would actually recommend doing. I would recommend having an additional Excel file that contains your management dashboard, your Gantt chart, your editorial calendar, and your budget table. Because what can happen with students is, a lot of the time, if you compile a Gantt chart, as I showcased earlier, in Excel, to get that in your main body of work, or even in your appendices, can be quite difficult when you try to minimize it down to get it into an A4 page. It will become very minimal. My advice is take a screenshot of your Excel files and then include that in your main body of work, and then just allocate under that the actual word count, because they're inclusive of word count, those frameworks. So just ensure that you put the word count and you incorporate that into your overall word count. But you can take an image, that's fine. It might make it look a bit more professional and easy to read for the assessor. And then include an additional Excel file that has the editorial calendar, the Gantt chart, the management dashboard, and the budget table as an additional file. That's absolutely fine. So then we can go in there and we can have a look on a much more interactive level if we need to of how the whole thing has been formulated. But if you're having problems, it can happen, of getting that, getting those calendars or charts in the main body of work, you can take a screenshot of them. Okay, that's all right. Just make sure to include the word count at the bottom, and then also include the word count in your overall 5,000 words. Just okay, so that's just one tip I'd have there. So referencing, make sure that you can take photos of the charts that are needed in the main body of work. You can also include supplementary files as well. You've got 2 additional files that you can use. And then finally, the last thing I would say is always just ensure to try and submit your assignment, but not on the last day, because you know you might have a tech issue and it does happen, and you know you're gonna just run into late. And unfortunately, the assignment deadline, unless there's a medical situation, we can't actually just extend the deadline out. So my advice is really try to get your assignment in with, you know, 2 or 3 days at least ahead of the schedule. And remember, guys, there's a lot of content that needs to go into developing those frameworks. So do start now if you haven't started. Or just ensure that you're, you know, maintaining the momentum of getting this assignment done, because there is a lot of work that needs to go into the likes of those editorial calendars, Gantt charts, and then you've got to do a little bit of strategy research as well, look at the course content, and then actually formulate the whole written text of your assignment. So it's a lot of content. It's very valuable content, and the strategy one is really beneficial going forward a lot of the time to students, because you're really getting in-depth analysis of how to use these channels in a practical way. Okay, so let's just sum up how to contact our support team if needed, guys. First protocol, look at the handbook, as I said, and that's available depending on what platform you're using. If you're using our class network or our new platform, it's available in the assessment area resources, or it's available in the learning support hub. Academic writing guidelines are available. Harvard referencing guidelines are also available. Check out our membership platform as well if you have access to it. There's, as I said, there's content marketing dashboard available there if you want to have a look at that as well. The online form, feel free to ask questions, whether that's between yourselves or if it's a question directly at our support team. I'll try to get back as soon as possible. And then obviously look at the lecture content and try and, if you want to gain more insights, maybe use that kind of content in your course as well. Or maybe it could just be some way that you identify information that you want to go and then look further at existing academic journals that have already been created. Finally, you can email on assignment queries at digitalmarketinginstitute.zendesk.com as well, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. But I'm just going to go into the Q&A now, guys, okay? And we'll just have a look at if there's any questions that we can address. So just loading up the questions here. Okay. Regarding the screenshots, do we need to design them? Yes, you do. So it's a good question. So thank you for that question, Anna. Regarding the screenshots, as I said, this is the creation of the channels. So you're going to showcase that with screenshots. So there's actually one website called adparlor.com, which actually allows you to create mimic social media paid advertising. That's adparlor.com. And that will actually allow you to create conceptual ads for social media channels. But as I said, as I ran through the presentation or today's video, that you will need to showcase not only how to create, but the flow and the design, and also the target audience that it's going to apply to. So yes, you do need to create screenshots for all your channels. You can show examples, but I'm not going to lie. If you want better results, you need to create them, because that's going to showcase how you've actually learned and you're using them in a practical manner. Using examples can be seen sometimes as a slight way of getting out of actually the full-on creation of those channels. So my advice is to avoid using examples and really showcase how they're created from a creation point of view, from a design point of view, and then from a distribution point of view as well. Okay, do I need to include individual staff costs or overall staff costs? Include individual staff costs is my advice, and you can also then include. So on the budget table, you'll see that you have the costings of the channels, but we also have on our in our assignment handbook, you'll see the staff cost example template, and that actually has the staff costs. And again, it's approximate estimates, but it showcases on a weekly level the overall staff costs. If you want to include the individual staff costs and you have information for that, that's great. It depends on the size of your company or the size of the marketing department, but it is open to interpretation, that particular question. I would personally advise, if you have the individual staff costs, include them, and if you can get them, even if they're approximate figures from job websites or from trend reports, do include them. Alternatively, you can include overall staff costs, but that's going to include all the individual ones. So if you have the individual ones, my advice is just showcase them. I have a question here. My business is very small, one owner and one staff member. There is an allocated budget per month for social media, but not for anything else. The owner does all the digital marketing himself. How would I create a budget around that? Okay, well, let's just get a bit more in depth with that. The business is small and there's 2 people working there, and there is an allocated budget for social media. So now the question is, what else do they have in terms of available budgets for digital? If they have nothing, it's going to have to be free digital marketing channels. That could be obviously creating a website. I imagine you've got a website operational, and it might just be optimizing that website for better performance, or showcasing user-generated content on that website as well, which is free. Secondary, I said there earlier, you can use email marketing as a free channel. So that gives you 2 options. You've also got the allocated budget for social media. So you've already got 3 channels there potentially. So the question is, how much budget do you have left to showcase what channels you're going to use? So the budget constraints here are going to define what channels you're using, and there's nothing wrong with that, even if they are free channels. You might just want to use content marketing as a channel and allocate a lot of time, because remember, time is not free, but in this respect, you're going to have to probably allocate a lot of time, even though you have 2 members. So it's about finding, you've got the budget for the social media, but without knowing what additional budget you have, then you're going to have to use that for the remaining channels. So you've got your social media, so you have 4 options to play with in terms of what channels to use now, and it's about finding what budgetary constraints are going to give you the best bang for your buck, I suppose, is really the statement in terms of what channels to select and how you're going to use them effectively as well. Okay, is cost just marketing related, or is it overall company funding and cost allocations? No, the costing is just related to the staff costs in the marketing department or the digital marketing department of your company, and then obviously the budgets around the channels as well that are specific, as we have showcased in our budget table as well. So that's the cost of the channels, and then also the cost of the staff regarding your digital marketing campaigns. All right. Should you include all references from assignment 1 and assignment 2? Yes, guys, you should. If anything, don't just take all your references from assignment 1. Include all the references that are being used in assignment 2 from assignment 1. So your primary research will be included. So that's a no-brainer. That has to go in. All the content of your primary research has to go in the appendices for assignment 2. But if you've got secondary research that was used in assignment 1 to formulate your target personas in assignment 2, that also needs to go in the assignment 2 appendices. And I'm sorry, that's a very long-winded sentence, but assignment 1 has target personas. Primary and secondary research was used to compile them. So any primary and secondary research that was used to compile them in assignment 1 needs to go in assignment 2 appendices and reference list, okay? Because the same target personas are probably going to be used, and then you've actually amplified them more regarding their digital channels and behaviors, as I said in the last webinar. So any supporting references from assignment 1 do need to go into assignment 2's appendices and reference list, yes. If you have references from assignment 1 that are not used in assignment 2, possibly it could be something in terms of, I'm just trying to think of what would be necessary in assignment 1 that wouldn't be relative in assignment 2. If it was something in terms of something, sorry, I'm just bear with me, I'm just trying to think of assignment 1 that we could use as an example. It could be a trend report that was used in assignment 1 and it's just not applicable in assignment 2. Then you don't include that in the references. So you only include in your references contents that are actually in assignment 2. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Can you help with, okay, so just a question here, guys, regarding marketing budget. The company runs, so I have here, sorry guys, I'm just loading up the final question. And it is, the company runs and markets events. There is no company marketing budget. Budgets are determined on a show-by-show basis. Okay, so in that respect, the company runs marketing events and there is no company marketing budget. So budgets are determined on a show-to-show basis. My advice on this respect is go and ask your company the approximate budget for their digital marketing campaigns. Because as you said here, these are traditional marketing channels, marketing events. Now you can incorporate them into those digital channels, as I said earlier, from an IMC point of view. But the problem is that you need to showcase with a validated budget, and it can be an estimate, but you need to get that from your company before kind of going any further with this. Because if you do, you know, we can't validate what the kind of budgets are, and you're just selecting channels and then putting revenue streams potentially behind those channels as well. So that can't really be used. You need to find out what they are, okay? So I hope that kind of sums that up. I know I was a bit vague on that answer, so I'll try and just go through it quite quickly again. What I mean by that is that the company is running marketing events and they're traditional channels. So the budget needs to be reflective of what your company has to work with in terms of digital marketing. Okay, now if they have a very small budget, as I said, that's okay. You can use their channels like the likes of email marketing or website optimization or content marketing. But you can't just showcase it on traditional marketing budgets. Okay, you need to find out what their digital marketing budgets are for the year or 6 to 9 months. Okay. All right, guys. So I hope, and if you have any more questions on that, please do email me and we'll try and shed a bit more light on that. It's just hard to kind of decipher that with the one sentence that's available. Okay, guys. So that sums up the Q&A for today. This is the last webinar for probably a lot of you guys because it's assignment 2, part 2. I hope it's been informative. Ongoing, guys, please do email our support team if you have any queries. Use the forum, use the assignment handbook, or use assignment queries at digitalmarketinginstitute.zendesk.com. But I wish you the best of luck in submitting your assignments. Thanks for attending today's webinar. I hope it was informative, and I hope it gave some insights into how to best approach this strategy assignment. Best of luck, guys, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.